Okay, this is Jim Fortin, MindAuthorityNetwork.com. Today is December the 17th, 2013. And last week, if you've listened to the last call, we talked a little bit about a friend of mine, which I'll recap here in just a minute, who took his business in his industry from his exact words where he was broke 1 year ago to $2.4 million in sales, and he did that in 24 months. And you might have listened to the last call, or you were on the last call. So what we're going to do on this call is dig into some of the things that he said that he did that made all the difference, that got him from zero to $2.4 million in revenue in 12 months. So let's just dig in here. And if you have any questions, hold them until the end of the call. Take plenty of notes. Also, this will be recorded. So this is a way to help you get from where you are to where you want to go. Because many times, I heard Nicola say, for those of you and I've said it before, those of you who don't know who Nicola is, she's the top 100 earner in Isagenix. She's on these calls. Some of her team is on these calls. She said a while back that you just have to decide. Well, the problem is a lot of people, they don't know how to just decide. Or people decide, and which I call a commitment, and then they don't stick to it. So when I asked my friend, we were talking last week, and I said, if you haven't heard this already, I said, how did you get from zero to $2.4 million in 12 months? And he said this. Number one is this, and this applies to everyone listening now. The first one is this. I decided I would not live the old way. Now, when I say that, many of you actually have not decided that you won't live the old way. Many of you actually live the old way. On these calls, for example, you'll get on the call, you'll say, oh, this is great stuff. This is really good. I can use this. I can grow my business with this. I'm going to learn this. And then 30 minutes later, you're right back to your old ways again. And when I say old ways, that's right back to your old dragging your rear end, not doing what you need to do, not making your calls, not learning what you need to learn, and you go right back into your old patterns again. Let me give you the best example here. And I don't know how long ago it was, but about 6 months ago, I gave everyone in Isagenix a document on objection response. And I taught you guys exactly what to say to respond to objections. If I were to pull every one of you aside right now in this moment, and I said, let's go through the objection response, I can't afford it. Could you give me 3 smooth as silk responses back? Boom, I can't afford it. Is this MLM? I like to eat real food. Only people at the top make money. I don't have time for this. Could you give me 3 automatic roll-off-the-tongue responses right back to every objection that I gave you? Now, my guess is most of you probably cannot. The reason why is because you've gone back into your old patterns again. You think that you want to build your business, which is left brain, but the right-hand side of the brain goes back into old habits again because we live out of the right-hand side of the brain. So the first one was this. He said, I decided I would not live the old way. So what you have to do is you have to decide to change something about yourself, because to not change something is living the old way. So you have to decide to change something, which we'll talk about in just a bit. The next was, and these are his words, and they can apply to you in different ways, but he goes, I ask the universe. As I mentioned last week, the old phrase, seek and you shall find, ask and you shall receive, knock and the door shall be opened unto you. And he goes, I just put out there what I needed. I put it out in the universe, and the people that I needed showed up. And he said for him, and this will apply to you as well, he said the number one thing that helped my business grow, and this guy, we're very good friends, and one of the reasons we are is that we think very similar. And I don't mean in terms of beliefs and values. I mean the way that our brains work. People won't really think about this, but you're most attracted to people who actually process information the same way that you do, because they're very easy for you to communicate with. So I am predominantly visual. I am a general thinker. I am right brain dominant. I actually, when I think in big pictures, and then I chunk down to little ideas, which means that I'm not all that detail oriented, which is also a classic trait of a really good salesperson. If you look at any testing, most really good salespeople are not detail oriented. That's why I have a whiteboard to keep me on track, etc. So we're very neurological alike. We get along, we get along very well, very easily. But in his mind, he goes, my business grew when I found a project manager. See, so he was all right brain, but he needed that aspect of project management to keep everything on track. And he goes, that's when everything took off. So a question you might be asking yourself right now is, what do I need? What other resources do I need in my business to help me be successful? And ask for it. You've heard the old phrase before that I just gave you, the biblical phrase, but ask for it. Ask for the help or the guidance that you need. One more thought here and then I'll move on is that I constantly, when I need something in my life, I constantly will just talk to myself and what I call asking the universe, and I will say, what is it that I'm not seeing that I need to be seeing? And I will ask my unconscious mind at night. I call it sub for subconscious mind. Sub, this is what I need. Solve this problem for me. Show me where I can meet these people. I think you heard me say before, I said on the call long ago, my next call after this is with a real estate team in California. I've been coaching them for 3 years. I make over $100,000 a year on that one team that I coach. And I met them in 2010 through an ad that I placed in American Airlines magazine. Actually, it's one of several ads that I placed. But I got the idea for the ads in a dream. I hopped up out of bed, looked at their media kit, did advertising with them, which is very pricey, for a full-page ad in American Airlines magazine. But the point is that I got the idea in a dream, I acted on it, and every year that same relationship has made me over $100,000 a year. And then the final one is this. So the first one is this. I decided that I would not live the old way. That means you got to do something different, you got to change something. The second one is asking, and the third one is this, and I see people fail on this more than probably anything else. He said, I take action immediately. And I've seen him do this. When I recommend books to him, and as I said, I mentor him, when I recommend books to him, last week before he was going on a ski trip, before he went, that morning I recommended 3 books. And I talked to him that night before he went on the ski trip, and he goes, I've already downloaded all 3 of those books to my iPad. And he goes, I'll read them on the trip. So taking action, and you've heard me say before that Tony Robbins has built his entire $50 million a year empire on 3 words: take massive action. I listened to last week's call, and there was a crack when I said what I'm going to say next. But I said we have a phrase in Texas, and there was a crack in the audio. But I said even a blind pig can find corn, and there was a crack where the word pig was. Basically, what you heard was even a blind blank can find corn, but even a blind pig can find corn. So take action. So, I'm asking you guys, all the things that you learn and the tools that are valuable for you, do you take action on them that day, or is it a month later or a week later? I mean, how much later is it that you take action or never take action at all? Okay, so the number one reason that you're not where you are is because you're not deciding. You're not deciding, and deciding is a commitment. And then what you're doing is, if you are deciding in your own mind, you're not sticking to your commitment about the decision. I'm gonna do the GoPro, and I'm gonna blow it out. I'm gonna take I'm gonna do all these kind of things is what you say, but then 5 days later you're back to your old patterns again. So the reason you're back to your old patterns is one reason, and this is what we're going to tackle on this call. It's how to stick to your self-commitments, and I'm going to lead you through a step-by-step process that you will be able to quite literally monitor your behavior every day, and you'll know exactly what you need to do to stay on track, and you'll be able to monitor it to see if you're staying on track. Okay, so lack of discipline is the reason people fall off track, and discipline is this. Are you ready? Discipline is putting off a short-term desire for a bigger long-term gain. Putting off a short-term desire for a bigger long-term gain. Many years ago, or you could say a short-term activity for a long-term gain. Many years ago, research was done by Robert Cialdini, and what they did is they put cookies in front of children, and they were small kids, I believe in 2nd grade, and they said you can have 1 cookie now, or you can wait and have 2 cookies later. And they tracked them all the way through their grammar school, middle school, and high school years, and they monitored their grades for all those years, for 10 years. And what they found is the kids that deferred the one cookie and took 2 cookies later showed more self-discipline, and over the course of their education, they made significantly higher grades. Well, the reason why is because they were more disciplined to study. So these are things that are kind of, we learn these from our parents, we learn by, by watching people and et cetera. But for example, if you're always going for that short-term gain, today, and that's a whole different subject. I don't mean, don't live in the now and all that. But if you're always doing things today that you shouldn't be doing, that are getting in the way of longer-term things that you need to be doing, then you're not demonstrating discipline and you're sabotaging yourself. Okay, so next let's look at this. Why do 99% of people fail when they say, I'm going to take action, I'm going to commit to this, I'm going to do it? Because at every, NYKO and every, celebration and any other MLM event I go to, or any event, or any company, real estate or whatever, you go to, Keller Williams, they call it family reunion. But you see all these thousands of people, and they're all excited, and all of the excitement and the hoopla and the holler, and they're all making their goals for the year, and they get home and then the wheels come off. Well, how come 99% of people fail? They fail not for a lack of desire. None of you have not gotten where you are for a lack of desire. People fail for a lack of understanding and planning. And that's what we're going to do today. You must have a plan. You must have a method. Now, as I said earlier, I am right brain dominant. I'm going to tell you right now that if I don't have a plan, the wheels come off. Doesn't matter what I'm doing. When it comes to big projects, if there is no plan in place, it ain't going to happen. Because being right brain dominant and being options oriented, which is a meta program over under the, it's over in the ZES learning section, the last category, I hop around all over the place, and it's very easy for me to do that. And if I don't have a plan, then day 2, I'm already lost, and I'm already off track. Now back to Nicola. Nicola has a plan. She has a whiteboard where she has her plan worked out every day, which I'm gonna give you guys a resource today that will keep you 100% on track every day. It'll show you exactly where you are in your behavioral process. So I'll give you that in just a minute. Okay. So the reason people are failing is because they don't have a plan. They don't have a method. So, all right. I asked you last week, and if you haven't listened to last week's call, you probably want to go back and listen to that here at the Modern Authority Network. It's posted right below this audio here. But I asked you a big question. What do you have to decide and commit to? Do you have to commit to start doing a new behavior that's going to get you to where you want to go? Or do you have to decide to commit to stop doing a behavior that's holding you back? See, most people try to decide to commit and commit to doing something without first realizing that they have to commit to stop doing something else. Now, what I mean by that is this, and I explained it last week, but I'll dig into it again. So when you go to, for example, you go to NYKO, and all these people are all excited because guess what? It's the beginning of the year, and we're all just pumped up and fired, and I'm going to be an ISA millionaire this year, and I'm going to quit my JOB, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. What they think that they're doing is deciding to be that thing, meaning the ISA millionaire, let's say. But what they haven't realized is they haven't decided to stop the old behaviors that keep them from being an ISA millionaire. So let's say, for example, that somebody has massive fear issues. They're just everything, and there are people that have this, and I mean, they learn that, and I understand that, or they have massive anxiety issues, let's say. So let's say this person goes to NYKO, and they're all pumped up and fired up, and they say they're going to be an ISA millionaire, but they've got anxiety issues, or assertiveness issues, or fear issues. So what they do is they, in their mind, decide to be a millionaire, yet what happens in the brain is the fear issue or the lack of assertiveness or whatever it might be is stronger, and it overrides the decision to be an ISA millionaire. Because let's say, if you're going to be an ISA millionaire, for example, you've got to have the courage to be able to approach people, to approach strangers, to talk to people. So part of you might say, yeah, that's me, I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to be that ISA millionaire. Yet the person's afraid to approach people. So when we look at commitments we have to make, it's a stronger commitment to not say I'm going to be an ISA millionaire, The first step on the ladder, a stronger commitment, is to say, you know what? I'm going to eliminate my fear of talking to people. Because, see, when you do that, then you cut away the ankle weights. Because the ankle weights, it's like you're at the bottom of the ocean, always trying to swim up, and the weights are always pulling you back down again. So what I want you to get is this. As we talk about deciding to be a millionaire, deciding to be a millionaire is what I call a macro behavior, a macro thought. It's that big thing that I'm looking at. It's that big thing that I'm working for. But what most people have never recognized is there are micro behaviors that contribute to the macro behavior. Here, let me give you an example. Let's say that you're going to bake a cake. Well, the cake is let's say it's a pineapple upside down cake. So not only does it have all the cake ingredients, it also has pineapples on top of it and cherries. So let's say you're going to bake a cake. Well, that's the macro behavior. That's the macro end result. However, inside the cake, you have, what do you have? You have flour, you have sugar, you have eggs, you have, I don't know, you have baking powder. You have pineapples, you've got cherry, you've got butter in your pan. You've got 10 different things that are the micro of the macro. But let's say, for example, that you're making this upside down pineapple cake. But let's say, for example, that by mistake you put salt in the cake instead of sugar, a whole cup of salt instead of sugar. Well, what happens to your upside down pineapple cake? It's no good. It's of no value. It does not work because one micro ingredient went off. So when I look at your behaviors, what does it take to become an Isagemillionaire? It's like the cake. You know, the Isagemillionaire is the macro behavior, but what are the micro behaviors that you need to become an Isagemillionaire? Now, that's everything that you see Nicola doing is, you know, planning, time management, follow-through, commitment, discipline, taking action, deciding. So when you look at those micro behaviors, if you're not following through on the micro behaviors, what's going to happen to the macro behavior? That's why you find yourself 12 months later and you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? I really wanted to, this was my year and I really wanted to do it this year. But you look and you're really not any further down the road. So I said last week, most people, you know, the brain moves away from things or moves toward things, okay? Somebody just dinged in, so I'm going to repeat that in the middle. The brain, all of us have learned to move away from things or to move towards things. People that are moving towards things, and in this instance, I'm watching her, Nicola is moving towards the opportunity of making the money she wants to make in Isagenix. I see other people moving away from their job. Now, people up on stage will say, you know, quit your job and then, you know, build your Isagenix business. That's the wrong perspective. Actually, that's the exact wrong way to look at it, because what that person is doing is moving away from something, and that's generally the least effective way. I mean, it can be effective because it motivates people, but people move towards having something or away from the pain of not having something, okay? So I'm asking you, as you're building your business, are you moving towards the opportunity of being wealthy, or are you moving away from the fear or the pain of not having financial, you know, freedom and support and security? Two very different things. You know, I've said before that, for example, when people invest in the stock market, they do it for two very different reasons. If I were to take two investors, $100,000 to invest in the stock market, and one investor said, I'm going to invest this money because I want to be rich, that person is moving towards the opportunity of having money. Whereas if the other person said, I'm going to invest this money in the stock market so that I'm not poor when I'm old, even though they're both investing $100,000, they have completely different self-motivations. One motivation moving towards is moving towards the opportunity of gain, being rich. The other motivation is moving away from the pain of being poor. So the person that's moving away from the pain of being poor, I can't motivate them by moving them towards the opportunity of being rich. I have to keep moving them away, because it's the way their brain works, from being poor. Okay, so I asked you last week, look at your absolute worst behavior in your business and your absolute best behavior. What will help you more, stopping your worst or doing more of your best? Now, the reason that I say this, let me take a couple of minutes here and explain this. If I had to break it down into percentages, and I coach for so long, these are pretty accurate percentages, it goes back to the 80-20 rule. 80% of you are doing exactly what you need to do to grow your business, and you just need to do more of it. You really don't have a whole lot of self-sabotaging behavior when it comes to building your business. Again, I go back to Nicola. It's obvious she does not have a whole lot of self-sabotaging behavior building her business, because if she did, she wouldn't be doing what she's doing. Now, she may have some behaviors that are holding her back that she can eliminate, but overall, when I look at it percentage-wise, she's doing more of what she needs to do than what she has holding her back. However, if for any reason you are stuck somewhere in your business, if for any reason you are not where you want to be, then the other automatically applies to you. You're doing something that you need to stop doing. So what I want you to stop doing is focusing on being the ISA millionaire. And what I want you to start doing is focusing on eliminating that one big behavior that stands between you and you becoming the ISA millionaire. Because once you eliminate that one big behavior, now it's like cutting the ankle weights off, and it's easier for you to become an ISA millionaire. So now let me ask you this about your worst and your best behaviors. Do they contradict? Are they interrelated? Now, what I mean by that is this. Let's say that, for example, you've got somebody and they say, I just love to party every day. Or let me back up here. I want to be physically fit. I want to be ripped. I want to be trim. I want to be 5% body fat. I want a great body. So that's one thing they're saying they want to do. Yet, on the other hand, they go out partying and drinking every day. So if I were looking at that person, I wouldn't say, okay, you have to go to the gym more. You have to eat better. You need to drink your isolane shake. You need to work your butt off in the gym. No, that's not what I would do. I would say, okay, the first thing we need to take away here, first thing we need to get rid of is your drinking every day, your partying every day. So that's where we're going to start our decision process, is to eliminate what keeps the bigger goal from happening. Let's say, for example, that you say, I want to be an ISA millionaire. Well, that's great, and I want everybody to be an ISA millionaire. But what you have to look at is, are there negative behaviors that prevent the positive behavior? Are there big negative behaviors? Do you get into your self-pity? Do you get into your self-talk? Do you get into your fear? Do you get into your anger? Do you get into something that is a big thing that keeps you from being the ISA millionaire? That's where you make your first decision. Because, see, that's where you have failed, is you're watching other people that have said, oh, you got to decide. And then you decide, but what you never decide is to eliminate the things that keep the decision from actually happening. So let's do this. Pick one behavior, which you should already have if you've listened to last week. One behavior that if you deleted or added that behavior, it would make a substantial difference in your business. Meaning if you're already doing really well, but you know if you amped it up somewhere else and you took it to the next level somewhere else, it would make a substantial difference in your business. Or the reverse, if you're stuck upside down in the mud, what is that one behavior that if you got rid of that one behavior, it would make a world of difference in your business? So pick that behavior, and what I want you to do is I want you to write it down at the top of your paper. And as you're doing that, we want to cover a couple of points here. Now, this first point was, and I've been there, in NLP we call that threshold. Threshold is the straw that broke the camel's back. In layman's terms, it's the phrase, I'm not going to live like that anymore. Okay, so I said earlier, you are where you are because you keep getting, the same thing every day, and it's because you keep doing the same thing every day. It's because you go back to your old patterns. Now, I'm going to borrow a line here from Jack Canfield, and everybody knows who he is because he's done some speaking inside Isagenix, and this is really a quite brilliant line. He says that most people never make 100% commitment. What they make is a 99% commitment. And because they make a 99% commitment every day, that gives them the opportunity to have to redecide again every day. Because every day, I'm not 100% in. That 1% is going to talk me out of it. And they have to redecide every day because they're not in 100%. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But if you're not in 100% to your decision, it won't happen. Because what will happen is you will give yourself a loophole, which we'll talk about next. You will give yourself a loophole to not make it happen. So we'll cover that in just a minute. Okay, so you've written down what one behavior do you have to increase or eliminate so that you don't have to live like this anymore. So think about how you're living. The money you have in the bank, the money you don't have in the bank. I had somebody call me recently, and she was saying, I don't even have my money to buy my kids some gifts that I need to buy them. And this was a while back. So, to that person and everybody in that situation, do you enjoy that? Do you like living like that? So obviously the answer is no, or you wouldn't be on these calls and you wouldn't have called me back then. So what's the one thing that you have to actually start doing more of, if you're already doing well, or you have to eliminate so you don't have to live like this anymore? Okay, deciding is number 2. So the first one, again, we covered that, is I'm not going to live like this anymore. And you have to be in, which we'll talk about how to do it, 100%. Not 99. This is, write it down, but you have to be in 100%. And 100% means no loopholes, no excuses. And that's what we're going to go into next. So the second point is deciding. And I'm going to give you more steps here, okay? And I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. What you have to think about is this. How will things be different? I'm deciding 100% this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make $100,000 in Isagenix this year. What you have to do is I want you to write down how will things or what things will be different. See, most of us say I'm going to do X, Y, Z, but we never think about what has to be different in our behavior. And what has to be different in our behavior has to be different in our thought, because our behavior comes from our thought. But what I want you to start looking at is what has to be different. And you have to be very specific about that. Now back up to the point I made earlier, no loopholes. This is where most people get in trouble, is to give themselves that 1% loophole. I refer back to, I don't know if it was on this call or another call that I was having, I was talking about Troy Dumas. He's on the Mind Authority Network under interviews. He's the last interview. He's the Olympic athlete who said that when he competed in the Olympics in 2012, that when they flew to Beijing, he lost a day of training the day that they left, and he lost a day of training traveling across the globe, international date line. And he said, by the time I got to China, I was already 2 days behind in practice against my competition, the Chinese. And he goes, I had to make that practice up somewhere. He didn't give himself a loophole and say, well, we're traveling today, so I'm not going to do it today. And, I lost a day of travel on the date line, so, hey, I lost a day of travel. That's not the way he thought. His mindset was, I train every single day, no matter what. No loopholes. And we'll talk about how to eliminate your loopholes, but your loopholes is where you let yourself squirm out. Okay, on a cross-country flight, all right, I've watched this for years. On a cross-country flight, people that are big smokers, 99, and I'll have one person that will argue or whatever. But a cross-country flight, if you've got a smoker, when they get on that flight from, let's say, New York City to L.A., they never think about cigarettes. The reason they never think about cigarettes is because cigarettes are not an option. They know they can't light up. So what happens is that part of the brain just turns off and says, oh, okay, it's not an option. You have to make things, and there's a video on the Mind Authority Network. It's one of the last couple of videos I shot in the peak performance section about how to change your behavior. You definitely want to watch that video. But the reason that people actually go for loopholes is because loopholes are an option. When you have no option, when you burn your ships, which we'll talk about in just a minute, then you have no loophole. One of my students, he makes about $300,000 a year. He's a young realtor, and he actually, and for him it was easier than other people. Some things are easier than others. Some things to stop or start are easier for some people than others. But he likes to drink wine. I wouldn't consider him what I'd say an alcoholic, but he likes to have wine for dinner. And he goes, but the problem is this. Some nights I'll have too many glasses of wine. I'll have 3 glasses of wine. And I said, Brian, here's your deal. You have to make this 100% ironclad. 1 glass of wine, period. No loopholes. Meaning when you go to dinner and it's a special dinner with people, no loopholes. 1 glass of wine. And he goes, and basically he repeated, he's like, so you mean, okay, so I have 1 glass, that's it, nothing more, no option. And I said, yeah. He called me a month later, and he's like, that works perfectly. I know the line in the sand. I know exactly where it is, and I know that if I cross that line in the sand, then I'm going to cross it other times. You cannot give yourself an out. Now, here's something else I want to share with you guys. I've been there in my own life, so I get it. Trust me, what I'm giving you today, I thought through this hard, long and hard, to make sure it's going to be an ironclad plan for you, because I've been in every ditch you've been in. I know that. So the next one is this: is sometimes we don't have the willpower in our mind. That's not the willpower. That's the wrong choice of words. Willpower doesn't exist. We can't find the motivation in ourselves. We can't find the mindset to start something new. We can't see it in ourselves. And that's a whole different module called learned helplessness, which I'll talk about later, not in this call, but a later call. Is, let's say we keep trying to build our Isagenix business, okay? And we keep trying, and we keep trying. We really want to do it, and we keep trying. And we're month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5, and it's still not happening. What we do is we go through the motions, but we don't really believe it can happen anymore. That concept is called learned helplessness. That's why women, for example, will stay in battered relationships, because they've learned it's just their place to get beat. And obviously that's not true, but they've learned that they are helpless in that situation. Therefore, it's always a completely negative spiraling cycle. So let's say that you're in some learned helplessness in your Isagenix business. Some of you may be. What I want you to get is this: we don't have to come out the door kicking and screaming and all fire, guns blazing and all that. What we do is let's just start the behaviors, because many times starting a behavior will lead to a shift in a mindset. There are 2 schools of thought in personal development, and I don't think any one school of thought is true for everyone. I think because we're all very different, we might even mix the schools of thought. One school of thought is that if you fix your mindset first, the behavior will follow. The other mindset is if you just start doing the behavior, the mindset will follow. And I've had people say, well, Jim, which one is right? I don't know. I've been doing this 20 years, and I see some people just starting the behavior and the mindset follows. I see some people working on their mindset. But the bottom line is this: as long as you just take action, either way, you're going to get results, okay? So if you're in a little bit of learned helplessness right now and not feeling good about it, what I want you to do is just get into action with what we're going to do, because action will help you change your mindset. Okay, now this is what we're going to do next, and then we're going to walk through your steps, and we're going to actually make a commitment on this call. All right, you got to burn your ships, and a great way to burn your ships is if you make yourself promises to yourself and nobody knows the promise, it's very easy to break the promise. Yet, when I used to tell people, if you're going to stop smoking, you're not going to see a hypnotist, and you're going to stop, or you're not going to, whatever, just you don't think you can stop. Tell people that, you know what, I'm going to stop smoking on January the 1st, and if you see me smoking, I will give you $1,000. They used what's called they used externals to help them keep their commitment. So there is a website that you can use. Everyone write this down. It's called BeMinder, BeMinder.com, BeMinder. And it's going to track your commitment. It's going to track your goal, and it's very interactive, very visual, and it will show you every single day how much you are on track with your commitments and your goals. Now, here's the deal. The first time, I believe, and I've not used it yet, I had a friend tell me about it, and I'm actually going to use it myself for something that I'm doing. The first time you use it, it's free. The second time you use it, you have to put up a monetary value, and you can't wiggle out of it. I've already been through the whole site. I've looked at it all. You can't wiggle out of it, and if you don't do what you say you're going to do, then the money that you put up, you lose that money, and it goes to a charity of your choice. But the bottom line is this: there are consequences for your behavior. Everyone write this down. If there are no consequences to behavior, nothing changes. Think about, for those of you that have kids, if there's no consequence to them breaking curfew or no consequence to their behavior, guess what? They keep doing it. Well, the same thing applies to you. If there's no consequence to you breaking your commitment, then the behavior will continue. So at a bigger level, when you guys make your little commitments, and I didn't say it the right way. When you make, actually, let me think through how I want to say that. When you make your commitments at NYKO, which many times are little commitments because they're not fully thought out, they have no plan behind them, there's no consequence to the behavior. So because there's no consequence, then it's okay, and then it's okay to get in self-pity saying, oh, I didn't do it, I feel bad. So you got to have a consequence to your behavior. So BeMinder will help you with that. And if you don't use BeMinder, use an external source, something. Tell somebody. And you know what? If I don't do it, I'm going to give $1,000 to the American Red Cross or whatever it might be for you. Okay, so pull out your pencil and paper. So the third one is this. Write this down. What is your commitment? And you wrote it down at the top of the paper. What is your commitment? Now I want to ask you, you don't have to write this down, but are you starting a behavior or are you stopping a behavior? Are you starting or are you stopping? Now here's one little caveat. If you're starting a behavior, then you can just write that behavior down. But if you're stopping a behavior, I want you to reverse it. Now, this is what I mean. I'm going to give you a metaphor here. If you say, for example, I'm not going to procrastinate because you want to stop procrastinating, well, by even saying it in that way, you're accentuating it in the negative. Because, for example, if I said, don't think of a pink elephant, you can't think of a pink elephant without thinking of a pink elephant. So if you're talking about stopping doing something, we want to reverse it. So instead of saying, I do not procrastinate, what I would say, I would reverse it, and I would say, I stay busy and productive every day. So, or I'm not going to be afraid of people. That's a negative. Reverse it. A positive is it's easy for me to talk to 3 people every day. We want to make it qualifiable. To say that it's easy to talk to people doesn't mean anything. To say that it's easy and I commit to talking to 1 person each and every day, or 3, or whatever it is for you, then we've got something to work with. Now, what I want you to do, pull out another piece of paper. Another piece of paper, and I want you to write at the top, I, put your name, I, Jim Fortin, Mary Pike, whatever your name is, I, my name, commit to blank for 30 days. Now, put there what you're either starting or stopping, but reverse the stop and make it a positive. So instead of, for example, I commit to stop smoking for 30 days would be, I commit to being healthy and doing only healthy things for 30 days. In your Isagenix business, it could be, if you're starting something, I commit to talking to 5 people a day. If you're already talking to 3, we know you can do it. Ratchet it up. I commit to talking to 5 people a day. If you can't talk to people because you're afraid, you don't want to say, I commit to not being afraid of people. You want to say, I commit, and it can be a couple of things. It can be building courage each and every day. I commit to working on my self-esteem each and every day. I commit to learning to be assertive. I commit to talking to 3 people a day, whatever it might be for you, whatever that big behavior that you know if you had, it's going to make a difference in your life. Now, below that, you want to write out a start date and an ending date. Now, mind you, once you started, that's your commitment. That is your line in the sand. So write out your start date and your ending date, 30 days. You also, if you want to put an image, because an image is very visual, if you want to actually get online, find a picture, print it out, and put an image of what it is that you're working towards, the unconscious mind thinks in imagery. You can do that as well. Then, what you're going to do is you're going to sign it, and you're going to post it somewhere that you can see it all the time. For you, that might be on your and I've done this for quite some time. I have a couple. I have one on my bathroom mirror, and I have one on my office desk that I look at on the credenza behind me. But, you know, when I shoot videos, my desk looks clean behind me. It's always a wreck. I've got to clean it up every time that I shoot videos. But I've got posties all over behind me. And stuck up on my desk credenza behind me is my 30-day commitment. So then you're going to sign it, and you're going to post it. Now, What I want you to think about is this, and keep that piece of paper out, because what you're going to write at the bottom is this. I want you to write in smaller letters, I want you to write roadblocks. What do you think some of your roadblocks might be to keeping that commitment? What in the past has been your roadblocks? Write those down, because we want to be aware of those. Next, you want to write smaller print, suggestions or affirmations. So let's say, for example, that you commit to talking to 5 people a day, every day, about Isagenix. That is your commitment for 30 days. But let's say that, like Nicola, for example, she's traveling. So what Nicola has to think about ahead of time, not the day she's leaving, but ahead of time, okay, in 2 weeks from now I'm traveling. What will I have in place so that I can talk to those 5 people each and every day so that she's not sabotaging herself and giving herself loopholes? So you have to actually look at your roadblocks, figure out what those are ahead of time. What are your suggestions? What are your affirmations? Now, your suggestion could be, it's easy for me to talk to 5 people every day. I stay focused every day. And we'll talk a little bit more in a minute about how to do this. Or I build my self-esteem each and every day. I work on myself every day. Every day and every way I'm getting stronger and stronger. Every day and every way I'm getting more and more confident. Every day and every way it's easier and easier for me to talk to people. This is going to be written on that one piece of paper you're going to put on your mirror. Now, I also, and I have it right here in front of me, I have 2 of these, and I can even, right here, like for example, they're about the size of a business card. I wrote them out. I've got pretty neat handwriting, so they look pretty decent. But one is, right here in front of me, I help 5,000 people monthly by or before February 26, 2014. And then my mantra at the bottom, and I have it in parentheses, is pay the price. And then I flip it over, and this is from Earl Nightingale. Ask and it shall be given, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be opened. And I have this like on the size of a business card. It's just a 3x5 card that I cut up. I wrote it on here. It's about, like I said, the size of a business card. I went to Kinko's and I laminated it. You can hear them. They're plastic. I've got 2 of them, and I carry these in my pocket. The other is I am in perfect health. And then I have TFB below it. TFB is think it, feel it, believe it. For some of you might have heard before, I am in good health, but I had some energy problems in 2012. Those are pretty much subsided this day and age. But I carry these 2 little plastic laminates like the size of a little luggage tag in my pocket, so I keep my affirmations in front of me. Okay, so another thing here is this, is an inner ally. You might want to write not on your suggestion page, and you can when you write all this out nice and neat, but an inner ally, an inner advisor. Some of you might have heard a while back, and people were criticizing or chastising or making fun of Hillary Clinton. The person who taught me NLP was a lady named Peggy Dean, and she's director also of the Gene Houston Foundation. Back in 92, I think, or 93, people were making fun of Hillary Clinton because they said she was trying to talk to the ghost of, oh gosh, who was it? Eleanor Roosevelt. And Gene Houston was with her in that moment. Gene Houston was not trying to have her talk to the ghost of Eleanor Roosevelt. Gene Houston was having Hillary Clinton use Eleanor Roosevelt as an inner advisor or an ally, an inner ally. So what I want you to do in your mind is I want you to create an inner advisor, an inner ally. You know, people have said, for example, in office, presidents, what would JFK do? I mean, he had a pretty tough time at the Bay of Pigs. What would JFK do, or the Cuban Missile Crisis? Or what would this person do, or what would that person do? And it has to be reasonable. It can't be, what would Jesus do, okay? It can't. There's a bumper sticker I saw, I'll leave it alone. But it can't, because we don't know what Jesus would do. But if you know somebody like, for example, Nicola, who is a achiever, and if you know her well, in this situation, what would Nicola do? And use Nicola as your own internal inner advisor. My inner advisor is also my brother-in-law, my personal advisor, but he always talks about multiple things, always being impeccable, always managing himself, and things that I have not mastered. I'm going to be candid with you. He's extraordinarily kind. I mean, I've heard him say for years, treat every single person 100%. Have absolute compassion with everybody that you meet. Candidly, I have not mastered that, yet I know it's one of my most important life lessons. So when I find myself in a situation where I'm not managing myself well, I will say, What would Don Javier do? If Don Javier were here, what would he tell me to do? And more than that, what would I see him doing? So he's my inner advisor, and he's also my inner ally, because I have him talking to me in my mind saying, I've taught you. You've learned better than this. You know better than this. Move your attention. Manage your emotions. Change your focus. Have compassion. These are all things I've learned over the years, but I forget sometimes, and I don't manage myself as well as I could. But I use him as my advisor, and I strongly suggest that you create an inner advisor. Okay, a couple of little rules here. You can write these down. These are all in the recording. And these are all, you want to learn this. Go back, listen to this several times. This will get you to where you want to go, I promise you. The thing is, for most people, it's a little bit of work, and people don't like to do work for the most part. And I'm not saying you, I'm just saying overall, a lot of people don't like to do work. All right, number one is do not talk to yourself about yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, loophole, no loophole, no loophole, no loophole. Do not get into internal arguments. Do not talk to yourself about it. Next, basically what that means is you're in 100%, not 99. Do not. If you start talking to yourself about it, you're not in. For example, saying you're going to exercise every day. You're lying your butt on the couch the first day, you start talking to yourself about it, that already means you're not in 100%. Do not talk to yourself about giving it up or not giving it up. Just do it. Next one is this. Do not question your commitment. Oh, did I make the right commitment? Is this the right one for me? Do not question your commitment, period. Next, I want you to often think of the end consequences of being free of the behavior if it's a negative behavior. Think of the end consequences of being free of the negative behavior if it's a negative behavior you want to be free of. Next, you're going to have a little monster in your brain. And that little monster is going to be on your shoulder at times early on in the process, the first week, nudging you on. Come on, eat the cake. Come on, be lazy today. Come on. Oh, it's okay. You don't have to make your calls today. And that little monster, which is Hyde, is going to be sitting on your shoulder trying to sidetrack you. What I want you to know is that that little monster, if you ignore the monster, will go away. What most people do is they get in the dialogue with the monster. Okay, well, yeah, and they give themselves loopholes, and they've shot themselves in the foot day one. Do not dialogue with a little monster. For those people that are dieting, we've seen it before. Oh, I want that cake. No, I don't. I want the cake. Well, they're already in dialogue with a little monster. Go back to what I said. It's not an option because you're 100% committed. What I want you to know also, and I've experienced this in my own life, I completely get it, there can be a little bit of what I call time disorientation. And what I mean by that is this, and I'm as transparent as I can possibly be. When I've started major new behaviors before, I mean major things, and I bite off more than I can chew a lot of times, and I keep chewing till I get it done. But when I've bitten off a big new behavior, I go through a disorientation where I want to many times pop back to my old behavior. That's my old comfort zone. So I realized that if I give myself a little time, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, and I give myself a little bit of time to change and I stop listening to the monster, it then becomes a lot easier for me to do. So I realize there may be a little bit of confusion or disorientation as you're starting your new commitment. That's completely normal. And the final one was give yourself time to change. Most of us, what we do is we try to change 3 days. Oh, I can't do it. Give yourself time to change. After all, for those of you that are afraid to talk to people, it's taken you 40 years to get there. What do you think? You're going to unravel it in 3 days? No, you're not. Give yourself time to change. The old phrase, inch by inch, it is a cinch. Next, and the rest here are easy. We've got four more steps, but they're easy. Okay, what I want you to write down next, and I want you to fill this out later. You can listen to this later, but the next one, and this doesn't go, and you can put all this where you can see it if this will motivate you. What will breaking this commitment cost me? What will breaking this commitment cost me? What I want you to get is that generally your behavior is causing you two problems. Let's say, for example, that you get into fear, and I'm only making that up, but you're afraid to talk to people. That's not one problem. That's two problems. The problem is that you can't build your business, which is one problem. And then the second problem is you feel bad about it, which is your second problem. So not only do you have the problem of behavior, you have the problem of feelings. So what I want you to ask yourself is, what will breaking this commitment cost me? Because remember, I told you if there are no consequences to your behavior, it's very easy to break. Next, are you clear that there are no advantages to breaking the commitment? Are you clear there are no advantages to breaking the commitment? And if you're not clear that there are no advantages to breaking the commitment, you're likely to lapse back into old behavior. Last one here of this section. Are you clear why you have to do this? Are you clear why you have to do this? You notice most people, they get up on stage and they start with your why. Notice in what I'm sharing with you now, why comes down at the bottom, not at the beginning. Because if you got those old behaviors, your why, you can talk your why all day long, and it doesn't matter if you keep breaking your word to yourself. So finally, your why comes into play. Are you clear as to why you have to do this? There are only two paths, like Yoda. Yoda told us, I think, what was it, Luke Skywalker. You either, do or don't do. There is no try. When it comes to you in this behavior, you either keep your commitment or you don't. There is no middle ground. And now we know what breaking the commitment will cost you. And I want you to write all these down as you're going through these. Okay, the next one is this. And I'm going to let you fill this in yourself because this is personal for you. What will keeping this commitment get me? So write that down. What will keeping this commitment get me? Get me, not get me. Fill that in yourself in your own time. Next, write this down. Make your commitment your number one daily priority. Make your commitment your number one daily priority. And this is what I want you to do. I want you to break it down into some kind of daily activity. Daily activity is tangible. So if it's talking to more people, you know you've got to write out those three people's names, their phone numbers, whatever it is, put them up on your desk in front of you, break it down into an activity. If you're working on your assertiveness or your self-esteem, then actually break it down into learning every day about self-esteem or assertiveness. And I told you guys before, I went through this book several years ago. I recommend it to everybody. It's the book called 10 Days to Self-Esteem by Dr. David Burns, B-U-R-N-S, MD, 10 Days to Self-Esteem. If you're working on your self-esteem, stop just sitting there trying to fix it with your own device. Get some help. Get a great book, and I recommend that book, 10 Days to Self-Esteem by Dr. David Burns. Now, the last point that I gave you, put a line under that. That is vital. Break it down into a daily activity and make it your number one daily priority. We have to get you into action. I want you to think about people that you recruit. You sign up as associates. What happens if you don't get them into action? Boom, they fall off pretty quickly. That's why we have to get you into action with your commitment. 3 more little ones here. What I want you to do is, Earl Nightingale said in The Strangest Secret, we talked about that, for 30 days, do your best. I want to go one step farther than that. I only want you to work it 1 week at a time. And I want you to take it day by day for 1 week at a time. I don't want you to focus on 30 days. I want you to focus on the next 7 days in front of you, period. 1 day at a time, 1 week at a time, do your best. So it doesn't mean do your best for the next 30 days. It means do your best today. And then tomorrow, we're going to get up and we're going to do our best again tomorrow. And we're going to sequence our days into weeks, and we're going to sequence our weeks into months, and we're going to sequence our months into a year. Next step, write this down. Chart your success with a calendar. And you've heard me talk about this before. On the days that you do exactly what you need to do, the day you've given that 100% and you achieve those things, on a visual calendar you can see, give yourself a green check. The days you don't make it, give yourself a red X. We're going to visually look at what we're doing to make sure that we stay on track. So chart your success, and also You can do it physically if you want to, but BeMinder will do that for you online. Depends on how you want to do it. And then finally, write this down, reward. What kind of small reward can you reward yourself at the end of your first 7 days? What I would do is, what I do is every 7 days is I actually give myself a little reward, and then at the end of 30 days, I give myself a bigger reward, which for me, generally that's like buying some kind of guy gadget, like some kind of electronics or something that I want, or new earphones or something like that. Even though, candidly, I'm pretty comfortable financially, I don't go out and just spend money. It took me forever before I had an iPhone. It took me forever to spend $400 on an iPod. I wanted it, but I didn't need it, so I didn't buy it. So that was a gift to me at one point. Like even today, for example, even though I use a MacBook Pro, and even today, I don't have an iPad. I mean, would I want one? Yeah, but do I need one? No, not really. I mean, if I needed it, I would have bought it. But a one-year goal for me, which is coming up December 31st, is an iPad. So, reward yourself. Okay, now here's the final thought. We got 2 minutes left. After your first week, if you didn't hit your commitment for the week, what I want you to do is I want you to look at what stopped you. Where did you fall short your first week, if that should happen to you? Because what I want you to notice is your fail triggers, meaning what triggers are throwing you into failure, what anchors, what cues are throwing you into failure. And then what you want to do, and we can talk about this in the next call, because the next call actually will not be next week, because that's Christmas Eve day, but will be the week after. And we're going to look at goal setting for the year and a different way to set goals. But what I want you to look at is if you've got some kind of fail trigger set up, that's what we want to tackle. And that could be different things for different people, but that's what we want to tackle. So, okay, there you have it. I'll have the recording up for you by tonight, but that is your plan for your commitment to your success. It is a fail-proof plan. I've worked through this plan. There's a lot of NLP in here. However, there are foolproof things to keep you from fooling yourself, because that's the number one thing that we like to do, is we like to fool ourselves. So if you have any questions, actually, when I post this on the Mind Authority Network, write those questions below the post. I'll have that up tonight. Write the questions below the post, and I will answer them over on the website. So,
hey, John,
everyone, yes.
Can you just say that website again? Because I couldn't hear the beginning. How do you spell that website?
BeeMinder.com.
D as in dog or B as in boy?
B as in boy.
Okay.
BeeMinder.com, and it will visually track everything for you daily.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, everyone. Okay, by the way, this is our last call until the week after Christmas, so everybody make it an awesome, awesome Christmas. Everybody stay well, stay warm. Hugs to you guys. Everybody take care. Have a great couple of weeks, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.